Earlier this past week, we talked about some big changes coming to Warzone with the 1 week mark for the mode. The nice part is that a lot of the big stuff we discussed in that video was actually fixed the very next day with Tuesday's update. Things like kill credit to the player who downed an enemy rather than who finished them off, contextual tap behavior actually working in Plunder, solos being added to the game, and all things like that. It was pretty good timing, surprisingly. But today, I want to discuss with you some more changes coming that have been acknowledged by developers either directly by them on Twitter or their technical public board, that being their Trello board. While I have absolutely no idea if we'll strike it lucky again and hit a few of the big nails right on the head, seeing them change this coming Tuesday, I do want to discuss with you what's on tap and what we'll likely be seeing here coming relatively soon. Perhaps even Tuesday, but perhaps not. That said, as we go along, what is one thing you would like to change if you had the option to within Warzone? Let me know down below, and as well, if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're a part of that nearly 64% of viewers who are not, to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare and all things Warzone on a daily basis. That said, let's begin. For this video, we have some general changes, some technical changes, and then some features coming up. First, let's talk about some of these general changes, but one pertaining to kill credit firstly. Now, we talked about kill credit being changed, and we saw that actually change on Tuesday, where players that down the enemy will then get the kill credit once they're cleaned up, rather than whoever cleans up the kill. This is, though, in a different mannerism, because one thing persisting right now, and I've seen a ton of clips of this, is whenever somebody downs a player, they'll just back out of the game entirely. Now, normally that should be something you'd think, well, you got the credit for the kill, pretty much, they're just waiting to bleed out, so if they leave, it shouldn't really be too much of an issue. But it actually doesn't give you the kill credit, and it also doesn't drop anything for that player whenever they actually do leave. They just disappear into thin air. So one thing Infinity Ward is working on here with this is to give the kill credit to the player that downed them, even if they do leave after going down. So it should count just as an automatic cleanup there at that point, and you'll be able to go on with the rest of your game. Now, following that a little bit further, there's also another change in the works here for disconnecting and dropping items. So this pertains not only to what we just talked about, where if a player leaves while they're downed, it won't drop anything. After this change comes through, you will be able to see that loot that they had. It'll drop there if they disconnect and leave the game, but it also will be something that relates to if teammates disconnect, which is something I've actually experienced a couple of times, where a teammate of mine would just lag out, so you couldn't get any of their stuff, even if they did have some good cash, they had some good loot you could pick up. It would just be the same situation where they would just keep running until they hit a surface while they're in server timeout, but then just disappear into thin air and nothing would drop. That again would drop all the items the player has upon disconnecting. So it helps in both aspects, both enemies and friendly, and those are some changes that I'm excited to see implemented into Warzone. Now, let's talk about some technical fixes, because there's a handful of these that may actually help your gameplay and improve it a little bit. Firstly, let's talk about some micro stutters. This was something that was mentioned that you may notice, where if you look around, if you're running around, it feels like the world just kind of entirely lags with you, but not on a level of where you're rubber banding back and forth, though I have actually had that happen once or twice, which was the rare oddball game out. But the micro stutters do persist, where it's just small enough that it's noticeable, but it's also small enough that it doesn't necessarily ruin a game for you. Those are being looked into and should hopefully have a fix here in the relative near future, because from a functional perspective, that is a big thing that you need to iron out. So I'm expecting that to be tackled relatively quickly. Another thing they mentioned that they were taking a look at with some of the balancing is audio balancing. This was actually something that was kind of night and day from pre-launch to where we are now. It seems like they've kind of played around with both extremes here, where personally I can't remember it too much, but I remember talking to people saying that footsteps weren't right, but now they're the complete opposite direction, where you can't actually hear them enough. On top of that, it'll still sound like gunfire is coming from 3 houses down, but it's really actually a quadrant or 2 across the map. So stuff like that, I think, just needs to be ironed out a little bit. There needs to be some geo that muffles the shot audio, but footsteps need to be something that you can actually hear. Personally, I really want to hear something with ladder audio too. We actually talked about that as of recently in a video too, where if you're climbing up a ladder, you yourself get a slight audio playback, but the person that may be waiting at the top of that has absolutely no audio playing for them until you crest the top of that ladder and you get on whatever surface you're climbing up to. Additionally, another technical change is some of the geo scaling. This is something that has been problematic that I've seen so many clips on Twitter, Reddit, you name it, and it's happened to me quite a few times. Almost has gotten me killed a few times as well, where you can't mantle or climb things that look relatively easy to climb, where you in theory should be able to just jump on top of it, but it'll slide you down, it'll push you back, whatever it may be. I'm sure that you come in contact with a couple of elevated locations that act exactly like that, and you're like, why can't I get up? That was mentioned that they're looking at that, and they're looking to iron out some of those known locations. Of course, when it comes to a map as big as Warzone, there's always going to be something where not everything is going to be perfect in every single single location, but ironing out as many as possible. That's something that, of course, is a priority, so they're looking at that for a hopeful fix in the near future. The next stuff really comes down to some actual big technical changes, such things being that some objects that obscure your view will actually have a sort of a light flare, which can be blinding. It's just a bright white light. That happens on some various consoles. It seems like a bug. It doesn't seem like anything that happens globally for every single player at a certain location, so that's something that's being taken a look at, and a fix is coming for that. A couple of optics are being worked on as well, where if you've used any of the 4x hybrids, you may have actually seen this yourself, where if you have the 4x optic scope equipped, it'll just show a black screen on that. That's something that's being worked out and should be ironed out here soon. Another fix included in the next update is for a rare bug that players will just be normally walking or running through the map, but then they'll get a progressively growing black screen tear in their field of view to the point where the entire screen turns black. That obviously shouldn't happen. You can't see anything then, and that's just simply game side. It's not like your monitor dying or anything like that. That's mentioned to be fixed out for the next update. Another thing being looked at is that of the underbarrel smoke screen grenade launcher not actually emitting smoke once that grenade is fired. Finally, the gas mask is having some more adjustments made to it. What's particularly noted is that of the interruption or the blockage of players' ability to use the parachute when the gas mask is actually on the player. Now, I'm hoping this also will then extend to some of the mechanics of either having the option to either just have it automatically equipped always, or the option to toggle it on or off manually, so that the animations when putting it on and taking it off don't become so obstructive as they are currently. Finally, the last thing that we know about is going to be coming in the near future is that of an option to report players in game. Currently, as it stands right now, if you know somebody is hacking, if you know somebody is using some mods or some situation like that, it's a free-to-play game. It's gonna happen. There are people that are going to use aimbot, especially with crossplay. As it stands right now, you have to remember their name and then go back into your recent players, but that can be a couple of things. Tedious, obviously sorting through everybody's name. 2, could be problematic because sometimes the names just don't show up properly. Sometimes names are omitted entirely just because of how many players are listed in that. And 3, also, there are so many players, so you have to filter through all of that. But the ability to actually do that in game will be absolutely fantastic, I think, so hopefully should combat some of the cheating that you may on rare occasions encounter. But as it stands right now, that's all the changes that we know of at the moment, and maybe we get lucky again and we see some of this stuff actually come and be fixed out with Tuesday's update. I am personally expecting a title update this upcoming Tuesday, so it could be something that we see a lot more technical fixes made during that point because they require a little bit more than just a hot fix, but there's also a couple of things that I'm hoping to see introduced. Firstly, that being quads and fives. Now, I mentioned this because we got lucky last week when we talked about it, where solos were added in the day after we mentioned that. So fingers crossed we get quads or fives introduced here within Warzone, because as much as I love trios, as much as I love solos, I really love playing with all of my friends a little bit more than just having to cut somebody out or play by yourself. That's something that quads would, in my case, allow me to play with my entire squad the entire way through whenever we wanted, but fives may help you out if you have an extra friend or two that usually gets left out in your gaming sessions, so I'm hoping that ends up coming as well. I'd expect some limited time modes to be starting up here relatively soon as well, and I actually think that there may have been one data mined. I don't recall off the top of my head too much information regarding that, but quads and fives, definitely, please Infinity Ward, bring those ASAP. I really need that in my life. Another thing I'd love to see is some custom loadouts for Warzone in particular. As it stands right now, I actually am eating up over half now of my regular MP ones and have to rename them for Warzone so that if I do jump back and forth, I know which is which, but I'd love to not have to. I think that'd be a great addition. Additionally, I'd love to see some more lootable weapons, not just the SCAR, MG, MP7, RPG, and the likes. It's right now a very limited pool for what's available when you actually drop, and thus makes loadout drops even more important and even more of a crutch because you're probably not going to win a lot of gunfights late game with a bare SCAR or an MG42 with 1 or 2 attachments or an MP7 with 1 attachment. And the final thing that I'd love to see added in, but definitely I don't think this will be added within the next week or so, I think that maybe at the earliest we see this introduced is with Season 3, is I'd love to see some better rewards for winning. As it stands right now, I'm kind of only going for leaderboards as my reward, sitting at number 4 on my leaderboards with 26 wins and having not played for a couple of days now at this point. It's nice to be able to chase down some friends or to be able to assert that lead a little bit when talking with some people, but at the end of the day, that's going to be something that's the novelty that wears off. I don't see myself chasing wins on the leaderboard for the rest of the year, so I'd love to see something like an exclusive camo for 50, 100, 150 wins. I'd love to see a calling card or or an emblem or something to say, hey, I won, or hey, I won X amount of times. It's just something that shows off a little bit of that mastery that you have within the mode. So I'd love to see some stuff like that. Currently, all we have is XP, and after you reach 155, well, you don't really need XP. I don't really see too many people really caring about their career rank, and also you don't really need battle pass progression. That's kind of just time that goes to nothing once you reach tier 100. So I'd love to see those changes on top of what we already mentioned, but that's where we're gonna wrap it up. That's everything we know of for the next upcoming update, and hopefully that update maybe a little bit further on though. But that said, let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this here? Are you looking forward to any changes in particular we mentioned? Anything you guys want to see? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts. But hopefully enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare and Warzone on a daily basis. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Probably live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. Minus an espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.